What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what up, what's going on, America? So, how are you? It's Rodney. That's my name today, Rodney. And welcome again, my co-host, Mr. Don. Just call him Keith because that's what you're gonna see a lot of today. Um, welcome to the Brooklyn Beards and Ball Sports Show. We are so grateful to have you. Before we get into what might be a long, dismal show for me, we'd like for you to subscribe, to like, to comment on this YouTube and Facebook page. We are so excited and grateful for all of the feedback that we've been getting. I've noticed there is a lot of Niner Nation folks out there responding to our show, and I suppose rightfully so. But anyway, nevertheless, I am here. So there's my co-host, Mr. Don. Don, how are you feeling, sir?
I'm doing well, Rod. I want to start off by saying that I appreciate that you're actually here to do the show. We obviously we care about our teams. We do a lot of trash talk throughout the year, and we were fortunate for our teams to face each other, and I'm glad that you're here. Should be a really good show. I'm gonna take it easy on you. I'm not going to not be graceful in victory. But without further ado, let's get into it. Divisional round recap. Oh man, what can we say? There was some really, really good games, some ups, some downs, some close ones, some nail biters, and blowout. There was an absolute blowout.
Yeah.
So I mean, the NFL put together a really interesting football weekend for fans that are were locked in. We had some really, really interesting games. But of course, we want to start off with the game that is most nearest and dear to our heart. San Francisco 49ers hosted the Dallas Cowboys. San Francisco was a 4-point favorite. And I'm going to say this. I know under normal circumstances, I would normally, in a trash talk type of way, really kind of destroy or try to destroy my partner and co-host Rodney. But I'll say this. It was a very, very good game. And I honestly had picked the Niners to dominate. And listen, credit. I'm giving credit where credit is due. Dallas played really, really good defense. Our running game in the beginning, first half, couldn't really get any significant traction. So, hats off to the Cowboy fans, and of course, the Cowboy D. But of course, as I always say, the cream always rises to the top. And I think what I was most excited about is that we stayed committed to the run. We didn't, just because it wasn't our normal where we're just gashing teams through the run game, we got away from it. Once again, can we give Brock Purdy some credit? He doesn't listen. He played a clean game. Ultimately, he didn't turn the ball over. And we're going to get into the impact of turning the ball over later. But I like the fact that he played a game, although this was the toughest defense thus far that he's played. I think that he played a clean game. I think he made timely passes. He moved around in the pocket when necessary to extend plays. Yes, he took some sacks. But the defense, honestly, the Cowboys are a good defense. But nonetheless, I think it came down to play calling, if you will. I think that that's where they lacked kind of, when two defenses are playing and it pretty much plays to a push. And for the most part, the game was tied or very close within one score the whole game. So that is pretty much the defense is doing their job. I think I can't say definitely it was a big loss to lose Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's injury, I don't know if it would have ultimately changed the outcome of the game, but it definitely was a pivotal loss. Because let's face it, Zeke is going to be our guest on next week because he's not because he's done, but he really he has no burst anymore, right? So Zeke has his best days are behind him,
way behind him.
And then I was looking because number one, why didn't they use the other running back they had? They just kept it in Zeke's hands, and you look at Zeke, and as much as I joke about Dak Prescott with the mouth open, Zeke. Listen, those purple lips, he was winded. Those lips were purple and he was winded. It wasn't because it was cold. That's like, yo, listen. So if he was gashed, you at that point you would insert a Tony Pollard, who is also an extension of their pass game, right? Because they got no help from the other receivers. Once again, just because your number one receiver has a good game, as I said on the last show, it doesn't equate to a win. So CeeDee Lamb balled out. He had a good game. But if everyone else is giving you 1 for 10 and 2 for 20, that's not enough. Tony Pollard would have added to that because although he's a running back, he does add. He's also kind of part of the receiving corps. So I think that would have benefited. Of course, you're already at a disadvantage because of the kind of being creative and outside the box with your play calling, but I think that only kind of hurt the situation for you guys. What do you say, Raj?
Well, let me say this to you, Mr. Teeth, because you're smiling, you're looking good, you're feeling good as you should, and so congratulations on your victory. Good win, very good win. And the 49ers come as advertised. They really do. The defense is legit. And I said to you last week that I felt the Cowboys would be a true test for you guys. It would be a team that's balanced, right? At least we were coming in that game with a very high potent offense, at least for the most of the year. With great efficiency in the red zone. We led the league in that. 71%. We led the league in third down conversion. So there was this was the matchup everybody was waiting for, right? And some would even say this could actually be the NFC Championship game. No disrespect to the Eagles, but at the end of the day, that's probably what this could be. But let me go through quickly go through a couple of things here. Again, defense was great with the 49ers. I thought the difference in the defensive side, I'll just talk about you guys before I get to all the putrid play of Dak and some plays within that game that I felt were very critical and tide changers. Fred Warner and Greenlaw, I thought played really, really well. The middle of your field, I thought was well contained. Dak likes to go into that middle, hits the seam, kind of play that underneath a little bit with Dalton Schultz, but we really couldn't get that. Even though Bosa, for all intents and purposes, was contained, much like Michael was contained on the other side, because Parsons got some pressure early in the beginning, but then he started to kind of fade out a little bit. Wasn't there, and again, it goes back to you guys maintaining the discipline to run. But I felt that the linebackers played a good game, and the pressure that you guys were getting on Dak, it did bother him to a degree. I felt he got a bit rattled in the sense where I know Dak Prescott. I've been watching him now for 7 years, and I can always tell when he begins to come out of himself, that swag, that confidence. A lot of what we saw last week against the Bucs, it just wasn't there. He clearly was not seeing the field. There were guys open on the field, which was later proven, after watching the game and looking at the all 22, you can see guys who are open, okay? And we don't know what Dak was looking at. Bad throw to Gallup on the sideline. That ball should have never been thrown. And a lot had to do with Gallup, too, because he was supposed to come back down in that stem. But Dak was supposed to release that ball a little bit sooner than what he did. And so good play again. That gave up 3 points on that. The interception before the half. Bad interception, okay? Because if Warner didn't get it, Ward had it. So one of the two was going to get it. Horrible turnover. And D, to your credit, you called it. You said if Dak turns the ball over with the level of consistency like he has, which has been the only consistent thing for the most part, then this was a game that you guys are going to win, because we had to be nearly perfect to win this game. And so then y'all come back after that second interception and you get 3 more points. So that's 6 points right there. Mine, of course, the point that we ended up with the extra point that was blocked that clearly would have been missed. He would have kicked that to Oakland. I don't know where that ball was even going. You know what I'm saying? So anytime the guy to the left of the line can block the ball, that's you know we're kicking up the middle of the upright. So that was 7 points right there, okay? We only got 3 points after the fumble on the special teams on the punt return. So, again, your defense locked down. The series that I thought really killed us. And before I get to that, let me say this real quick, D. Before that second interception, Dallas went for it on 4th down in that same drive. We converted. But if we had confidence in our kicker, Dallas kicks a field goal right there, okay? And what does that field goal do? It prevents 2 things. The interception that ultimately happened and Pollard getting hurt, because Pollard got hurt on the same drive as that second interception. So if we were able to kick a field goal that was well in the distance of Maher, then we get the 3 points that we eventually gave to you guys before the half ended. So when you look at the series of points that we ended up giving you guys by way of the turnover, though it wasn't the touchdowns, but those 3 points, they add up in a defensive battle like that. Every point counts. And so I thought that the drive where Kittle makes that crazy catch. Number one, Trayvon Diggs, where are you? Why are you making a business decision with that weak width in your shoulder? You had a chance to knock that ball or create some kind of distraction for Kittle on that play. Why? I mean, thank God Gallimore was actually, he's a lineman. He's a DT running down there playing Kittle. Thank God that he fell on him, because Kittle could have got up and ran. And so that play right there was critical. The holding penalty on Donovan Wilson was big. 3rd and 9, D-Law gets the sack. We hold you to a field goal. That kept you guys on the field. Ultimately, CMC scores. Also, the holding on Jonathan Hankins, that was huge, okay? Those 2 penalties, along with the catch by Kittles that Trayvon clearly had a chance to at least disrupt and didn't do it because he's making a business decision. That drive to me was, I felt an impact. And then with oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. My kick returner, Jesus, he's a Pro Bowler this shit too. But
Turpin,
yes, who we don't use in the offense, by the way, because Kellen Moore is not, creative like that. Okay, he doesn't know how to use his weapons. And Turpin, we've been begging Dallas Nation for him to get used in the offense, and for whatever reason, Kellen Moore won't use him. But you had what appeared to be a touchdown on that kickoff. Why would you run right and
into him
back into the kicker? What? Yo, I'm not a man that uses invectives or vulgarity, okay? But Don, this close. You see the guy that's trending with the TV? Trust me, I had a video that would have trended and it would have been just as big. I could not understand why he did not cut up to the sideline. That was a score. So between that right there, and then the fact that Malik Davis was not used in rotation, you got it. You know right. You can't run with. Do you know, Donald, in the last 5 games, Zeke has had 50 carries. He's had 50 carries in the last 5 games or so for only 100 yards. That is it. He is done. Why are you running the ball with Zeke? If it's 3rd and inches, okay, fine. He can do his short yardage thing. But there's no way you think he's gonna be your only running back in the second half. Use Malik Davis. You only showed him 3 times, and he never touched the ball in the second half. He has a little bit more explosion. Okay, he's not Tony Pollard, but he's a little bit better. He could hit some holes. He would at least kind of offset the rhythm a little bit in the running game for San Francisco, because when you get used to tackling the same guy, then you get another little shifty guy. It makes it a little different. So my whole thing is, where was the creativity? Where was the adjustments? That's the thing that makes Kyle Shanahan so effective as a coach, because to your point, he said, I'm going to stick to the run. And what did the run do? The run is like the jabs, D, that a boxer takes. And what was happening? You clearly saw Dallas was getting winded. Dallas was starting to reel. They was on their heels. They blowing wind. They grab it on their jerseys, holding knees and thighs and posing. They're tired. And so that's the thing that, to your credit, you guys stayed with the run. And so, and to cap it off, the the worst thing in the world, and only Dallas would do this, right? Again, much like what last year playoffs we saw in Dallas when we played y'all, right? How we ended the game, okay? Dalton Schultz and sidelines, they I guess they don't work for him. I don't understand. I mean, you got to know the rules, bro. And then you casually just get 1 foot in bounds. How do you do that? Because I felt like if both those plays where we was able to stop the clock, if Dalton had forward progress getting out of bounds and then getting 2 feet in bounds, maybe we get a shot for at least a Hail Mary, if anything, okay? Because McCarthy said, had we scored, we would have went for 2. We was going to not put it in the hands of Maher to go into overtime. Dallas would have went for 2 to win the game, and whatever happened, happened. But you run a play that looks so, this is indicative of the Cowboys wanting to heap just ignominious, putrid, rancid stupidity upon themselves. What kind of formation was that? You had Zeke hiking the ball, and you got your offensive linemen out on the side. What was that, D? What was that? D, I don't understand that you would set up such a stupid formation as the very last play of the season. It just looks stupid. And this is what Dallas does. Out of a lack of creativity all game long, that's what you do. That's how you end the game. And I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to throw it back to you, D. Dak Prescott. Dak, I've been an apologist for you. I have done everything I could to support you, to defend you. I still believe that you are a very good quarterback in comparison to guys that are kind of like in your arena, if you will. I don't mistaken you for Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow, but I do believe you're a good quarterback. But you know what, though, Dak? As far as I'm concerned, okay, the way you play, and to your credit, D, okay, I listen, you've been calling it for the last several weeks. The interceptions were going to come back to bite us, and my friend, it did. Dak Prescott, in my opinion, here's what has to happen to Dallas. I'll say this very quickly. Dallas, you got to get a better quarterback coach in there. Dak, unfortunately, after 7 years of playing this game in the pros, he needs development. He's got to get better development. I don't know what he's seeing out there. I think this over-aggression stuff that he's been trying to do, and I'm going to be aggressive. You know what? That's not you, bro. It's plain to see. That's not you. You cannot play that way. You have to make sure you are seeing what you're seeing. Throwing it into tight windows and so forth, that's not going to work. And as far as I'm concerned, Dak's got 1 more year. You fire Kellen Moore, you bring in another OC, and what you need to do is see how Dak develops under that and a better quarterback coach that could better develop him. John Kitna, I thought, was very good in the early parts. He helped Romo get to another level, but for whatever reason, they let him walk as a coach, and I thought that was a huge mistake because Kellen Moore is a teammate to him. That's not a real coach to him. That's his teammate. That's whose job he actually took because Kellen Moore was the 2nd string. Dak is the 3rd string. And when you look at Dak Prescott as a 4th round quarterback, as far as I'm concerned, we've got our return on investment for a 4th string quarterback. You're not getting any more than that, D. That's it. I mean, to get what we got out of Dak, 2 playoff wins, 5 playoff appearances, listen, I don't think we're going to get any better than what we got for a 4th string quarterback, okay? So this is it for me. Oh, we got to get him more weapons. We got to get, we had him. He had weapons. He had 3 Hall of Fame linemen. He had Zeke in his prime. He had Cooper, Pro Bowler, CeeDee Lamb, Pro Bowler, okay? You had before his injury, you had Gallup, you had Schultz, you have a good offensive line. How many more weapons do we got to keep giving this guy to be what he needs to be? I don't want to hear about weapons. We've given him all that he needs. Joe Burrow had 3 starting linemen out on Saturday, and they still won. So forget about trying to build more around. You done built as much as you can build. When are you going to take what you have and elevate that to the next level? That's what we need to see from Dak Prescott, because I think they've done all that they're going to do as far as giving you weapons to be able to play at the next level. So that's my synopsis as far as Sunday's game. Good D, and Purdy, yes, he played well. And I told you, D, that's why I think you guys will beat Philly, because You met the test with the Cowboys, and I kind of felt that y'all were the better team at the end of the day, no question about it. But you got tested there, and I think there's a certain measure that you go into Philly with. Philly's got a good D, they're good, but I do think now the Niners they can prevail against the Eagles, because I don't think I'm just not because I'm a Cowboy fan. I still honestly believe I don't think they're a better team than us. I really don't. But we'll see how it plays out next week. But that's my rant for the day. Okay, go ahead, man. I'm good.
Okay, well, listen, I do appreciate your comments. Shout out to your background. I do appreciate that also. But I'll say this. So I have a few questions for you based on what you said. Number one, does Mike McCarthy keep his job? Does Kellen Moore keep his job? Do the Dallas Cowboys have to make a move for themselves and also for the fan base to feel like they're moving in the right direction? That's question number one.
Yes.
Number two, is the lack of confidence, do you think it was a huge mistake by Dallas not to have an additional kicker and elevate them to the, from the practice squad up, so that in a situation where it's nip and tuck, a tight game, that they wouldn't have reservations about getting Maher to actually kick field goals? Do you think that was a mistake? Do you think that they were too proud, or thought that, hey, we'll just push through this? Because in the playoffs it's win or go home. Right. So that whole we'll just push it through. If your kicker makes a mistake, and let's just say it was a situation where you guys were down by 2 points and a field goal would win. If he's already rattled, if he's already shaky, that would be the difference in the game. And he didn't look like, when you saw his face, and the loss was all not based on the kicker, but it's a mentality when you now have to go deeper in your playbook because a part of your offense is out of the question. Right. I think they made a few miscues leading up to this game that, obviously paid big dividends for us. Because once Maher once he blocked, the extra point was blocked, that changed even in his mind, because obviously you're in a hostile environment and you have already made shambles given the last game, and now this is for all the marbles, and now you and like you said, there was no chance, even if it wasn't blocked, there was no chance that was going to even be made anyway. So that would have been 5 in a row that he missed. So my question to you is, whose head is on the chopping block? Do you think that, based on injuries and all the other stuff, do you think what improvements, what does Dallas need to do? Because Philly is getting better, right? Yeah. They're at the, and absolutely. Washington, we agree, we got some free agent quarterbacks out there. Yeah. They're arguably a quarterback away. So how do you go from elevating yourself to staying on top of the NFC East, or being complacent and ending up at the bottom? What do you say? Okay, so I'll say this real quick. Maher, I agree with you. We brought a kicker up from the practice squad. He didn't kick well in practice. Maher actually made all his kicks in practice, so they felt good about that. However, on Sunday, after the little scuffle there with Trent Williams and Debo and all of them, he goes to the other side of the field because Robbie Gould came and kind of squashed it on and said, hey, guys, leave him alone. Let him kick. He goes to the other side of the field where he's missing again. And Jerry Jones has to come down to the field and have a pep talk with him, on the field. I don't know if you heard about that. No, I didn't. He talks to him on the field while he's taking the warmers because he kept missing kicks after the scuffle. And again, mastermind by the 49ers to get into his head, because the kicking game, as we know, Donald, you and I know this well, it's a mentality thing, right? It's all about the mind. So anyway, then he kicks a few kicks after Jerry talked to him. He was already compromised, no question about it. And he compromised our play calling in the whole nine. I would rather have a kicker who is spotty with confidence than to have a kicker who was kicking at a Pro Bowl level but now got the yips and is losing confidence. And that's what you have with Maher. So he's a free agent next year. I don't expect him to be back. Okay, so He's gone. All right, going forward, for the fan base, and here's what Jerry and Steven did, which, again, I think there's two things here. So they didn't get on the Cowboys media station, the radio station, the local station this morning. Every Tuesday,
Jerry and Steven comes in on Monday. Jerry's on Tuesday. They talk. They cancel their interviews. They did not want to talk. Okay, so no talking from Jerry and Steven. I think part of that was to let the fan base know that we're just as hurt as you guys, and so we're gonna pout, we're gonna cry, we gotta show like this really bothers us. But I also think that they were trying to secure some coaching deals, right? Because Quinn, like your boy,
D'Amico Ryans.
Well, D'Amico Ryans, right? They're highly coveted, right? So I think he wants to make sure that he, tries to find a way maybe to keep Dan in the building. All right. So they got to work around the clock to see what they can do with that. Going forward, you have to get rid of Kellen Moore. Now, it's unfortunate because I do think overall Kellen is a good OC. Dallas has had the number one offense. Last year they did going into the playoffs. Top offense this year, coming into the playoffs again, right? But he lacks creativity, and I think he's kind of worn his welcome. Not only that, he's a Jason Garrett guy. You want to get anybody out of Jason Garrett's regime, wash them out. The other problem is that that's not Mike McCarthy's guy. So if you're going to keep McCarthy has to have at least the right to pick his own OC. What do you want to do with Dak? What kind of system are we going to put Dak in order to improve him? Because I got to work on my quarterback because he's not seeing the field right, and we got to find out what kind of OC and quarterback coach we can get in. That's the things you got to do. You got to sign Van Der Esch back. He's a free agent, okay? You're going to have to sign back. You got to get, my opinion, you got to get Donovan Wilson. He'll be back. He's a free agent. You got to sign him back. I thought he was a really good safety for us this year. Pollard, his injury now, it creates a little bit of something because there was talk that they was going to franchise tag him. I don't know if Dallas is still going to do that or not. He may not be, but they said he's supposed to cover his recovery. Only take 3 to 4 months because he got to have surgery. But they got to check the ankle as well again to make sure there was no further damage to that, along with the fibula that was broken. So anyway, make a long story short, you got to get back TP. You got to sign him back. No question about it. If you're going to fortify something, you got to get another receiver in there. You're going to have to draft some guys. You're going to have to get somebody up because we need another playmaker outside of CeeDee Lamb. We don't have that. All right. And so with that being the case, and there's a few other guys. I just can't think of the guys I'm trying to think of. Anthony Brown, I think you got to let him go. I'm not a big fan of him at the cornerback level. But Dallas has got to get another playmaker in there, and you got to get TP back. Schultz, I think you might be able to let him walk because you got good 2 young tight ends that can play if you give them a little more burn. We just got to be able to use those guys a little bit better. And lastly, as you already stated, Zeke, all his guaranteed money is gone. We cut him after June 1. We saved $10 million in salary cap space. So you got to let Zeke go. Now, if Zeke wants to stay a Cowboy, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a handshake. We'll give you, some amenities. You know what I'm trying to say? We'll give you a $500,000 for the year because you made all your million. You got, your $90 million with its $50 million guaranteed. You made your money. So if you want to be a Cowboy, you coming in on a friendly sonship deal, like the son of Jerry. You're just gonna come in and if you don't want to play, you can sit in the suite. It's okay. You understand that kind of situation. But that's it. Zeke is gone. It's over. You got to let him go. So that's what I kind of see. That, and that's just in a nutshell. There's a whole lot more moving parts. You got Hankins. You got other guys, Carlos Watkins. There are guys we got to be able to get back. Hopefully we can. We may not be able to keep them all, but Dak has to be redone. He's got to be reborn again if this thing is to ever take a chance. And we got to build for the 49ers. I believe that it's the Niners who own us 2 straight years, so it's not a rivalry as far as I'm concerned.
It's
We're
not.
bringing the 90s up, but it's not a rivalry. Y'all busted us twice. We got to build to get past the Niners. That's what you do. Yes, other teams are getting better. You stated it. But to me, the Niners now are the team of the NFC. And if you're going to come out of your conference, you try to over-trump the Eagles in your division, but you got to think about those Niners because you guys are pretty much going to be where you are, and your team is intact. I'm not familiar with all your free agency status and so forth, but that's what I see happening. So we're going to have to build to beat the Niners at some point.
Well, before we go on to the next team, what we have in our favor is at this point, if now we, because there's talk about obviously keeping Purdy, regardless, he's super cheap, right? And those are the windows where you can build and build around a cheap quarterback that is performing, and that gives you room to beef up wherever your deficiencies are.
Sure.
So we have that. Shout out to Keith, who I spoke to earlier, Keith Crow.
What up, Keith Crow?
And he mentioned the fact that, and this is it's very accurate. He said that pretty much along with what you're saying, Kellen Moore is a significant part of the problem.
Right.
He's running, Boise State kind of offense, because that was like that last play was a Boise State play. That was some bring somebody out and everyone's spread. And I mean, Zeke got blasted.
Center.
Because what was, and so yes, you don't expect Zeke at this point to be, running with any speed, but why would you put him in and then have him ineligible? But you have other players that aren't used to having the ball in their hands. You have it just didn't make sense.
Bad way to go.
I will say this. Ultimately, I think there needs to be a change. And if I am your defensive coordinator, I'm not going to. My thing would be, Jerry, if you really want to keep me, then you elevate me to the head coaching position, because there's opportunities. And with Jim Harbaugh deciding to stay at Michigan, that was, obviously the big names in coaching is Sean Payton. It was Jim Harbaugh, and then of course there were a lot of first-time head coaches, DeMeco Ryans, Eric Bieniemy, those people. So, but Dan Quinn has already been a head coach. So you would think that depending on the team, they would give him a shot over maybe a new coach, unless obviously DeMeco should get an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
You would give Dan Quinn an opportunity based on overall how their defense performed, the Cowboys defense. So
yeah,
I think you would have to do more than just give me more money to stay in the back, especially if you're not making any impact moves to elevate the offensive coordinator position or even the head coaching position. So I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I know it is with DQ though. I'm not a big fan of him as a head coach. I don't think he's a head coach guy. He's, like we talked before, these coordinators that I think are just good at being coordinators. I don't know if he's a head coach guy, but at the same time, unfortunately, if you're going to make him that, it's at the behest of the fact that you don't want to see him go as a DC. And so, because I'll be honest with you, Don, I don't think McCarthy has done bad this year. I mean, he coached a lot better this year, and last year he coached a lot better than 2020 because he got rid of guys that he was all in buddy favor with Mike Nolan. Your guys from San Fran that he knew, and he wanted to put his buddies on, and that was a disaster. And so I think McCarthy actually has coached a lot better this year. I don't think it was so much on him. I think his hands is kind of tied. He needs to get his own OC. That's what I think he needs. But losing DQ is going to be huge, though.
But the only problem with that, and we're really going to move on. The only problem with that is it doesn't seem like Mike McCarthy has a true understanding of what's going on. In press conferences, when they ask him specific plays, the thought patterns behind specific moves that was made, it's just a lot of because it was a play, and I don't know. Like at that point, you should know some answers. At least try to make us seem like you're on top of it and you are the head coach. You're not a position coach. So if you ask any other top-notch coach what the thought process was, why did you guys decide to ultimately go with said play or audible out, or why did your defense shift to this, or your offense became more aggressive, or that most coaches will have explanation for that.
I'm gonna say this to you. I think the reason why, and not to defend McCarthy, because you're absolutely spot on with that, but I think because McCarthy has deferred a little bit too much to Kellen in certain things and not taking the reins as a head coach. And so that's the problem that I see there, because Kellen is kind of empowered as an OC. And I think McCarthy, who can call his own plays, he was a play caller in
exactly.
Green Bay. So, but he I think he's kind of limited. And I think now what happens is when he gets in front of the public, he's got to make up something so that he doesn't throw his guys under the bus. He got to make up an excuse for Dak's interceptions. He's got to be the politically correct guy. And you're right. I don't think his X and O answers to his decision making is fluid, but is solid. But I think that a lot of it goes to that. But let me ask you this question, and I know we're going to move on. Just about your 49ers. Do you think they should, and this is what I'm suspecting that Kyle Shanahan would do, I think you guys are going to go dual quarterbacks next year. Because Trey Lance, you traded up for. So you guys got to do something with him, right? Garoppolo is gone because he's going to be a free agent, so he's gone. You got Purdy, who has won the locker room, has done he's hit the team to, at the minimum, the NFC Championship game, right? And so you to just pull that's not going to go well with the fan base in San Francisco. So I think, what do you think? Do you think they're going to end up blending these guys and have some effectiveness? Because Shanahan likes new toys, man. He likes stuff he can put together and work with.
Right. So I'll say this. I know that in order to be successful in the Shanahan offense, you do need mobility. And of course, it helps if you have, some arm strength. You have the ability to improvise and extend plays, which Purdy has, actually shown that he can do. Of course, Trey Lance has all the potential in the world. Now, there's talks because Tennessee poached our assistant GM to become their GM. No, he was an executive for the 49ers. They
hired him, right?
Yes, they hired him as their GM. So we're getting picks for that. There's a talk, obviously, with Tannehill being their quarterback. They need a quarterback, right? So why not? Obviously, there is a relationship. I can see that trade being made for Trey Lance to go to Tennessee because they need a quarterback. And so, Kyle Shanahan. No.
Oh.
Cut Tannehill. I mean, Tannehill cut him. I don't know if he's still under contract, but obviously he's underperformed. Imagine a Trey Lance with,
who's your backup, though?
What I'm saying is we can draft a backup. Or because you have to look at it like this. Our flexibility, because obviously Brock Purdy is so cheap, that gives us the flexibility to maybe get a backup quarterback again for cheap. They don't have to feel rushed into a situation, or keep Trey Lance as a backup, let him develop more. But at that point, does it make sense to keep him because so much is already invested in him?
And I don't think anybody would trade for him because nobody knows what he can do, really. The verdict is still out on him.
Every year, players are drafted or in free agency picked up based on potential, right? Because that's to say that nobody, because Tony Pollard is injured, you've seen a body of work, obviously.
Right.
But because he's injured, no one but the Cowboys would want him.
Right, but Trey Lance doesn't have, but he doesn't have a body of work, Trey Lance.
No, he doesn't have a body of work, but if you think it's one of those things, just like if someone sees, perfect example, we both grew up, you ever seen a very, very beautiful woman with an ugly dude?
All the time.
Right, so the logic is, why is, that beautiful woman with that guy? He must have great personality, whatever, and it becomes more intriguing. I say all that to say that the offensive genius of Kyle Shanahan, the fact that they did moved heaven and earth to upgrade to get him, puts it that, okay, they see something, because we draft very well. Obviously, we can turn out running backs. It can be the 27th pick, the 200th pick. We can somehow, we get good running backs. We have an eye for wide receivers, and so for they already had a winning quarterback in Jimmy G, but obviously he could not bring us to the next level. And someone like Trey Lance that relatively did not have a large body of work as far as college because of COVID and only playing a certain amount of games. The fact that we were still willing with all the other quarterbacks, remember all the other quarterbacks that had a lot more on tape video where you could see, he has the intangibles, he has a higher ceiling. I think that alone,
Kyle, definitely, there's something in him.
I think that alone would attract people. And of course, are we going to get what we put out for him? Of course not. But between the picks that we get for the GM and maybe a second and a third round for Trey Lance, I think we can actually recoup something because we have Brock Purdy so cheap. I'm not saying that that's what they'll do. They may keep both of them because at the end of the day, they can afford to keep both of them.
I think that, because they're both on rookie deal. I mean, Trey's a little more money because
obviously because
But I think they'll go dual. That's what I think. Yeah.
So only time will tell. But obviously, based off of body of work, based off of experience, I think you got to stick with Brock Purdy and allow him to continue and let Trey Lance develop. But I think it's a good problem to have because they're both relatively cheap, very cheap. I mean, Brock Purdy is very, very cheap. And he is, outproduced. I mean, having 2 playoff wins and being the last pick in the draft has already paid huge dividends.
Right.
So, I think that will afford us the opportunity. Any deficiencies, things that we need to, bolster, we'll be able to do that. So let's go on to the next game. We talked about the Niners and the Cowboys long enough. Let's go into the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll say this. If a once-in-a-life opportunity was a person, that would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here you are already David against Goliath, right? Because if we're honest, the Jaguars shouldn't even be here. And the Chargers should be kicking themselves even more how they squandered such a huge lead over the Jaguars.
That was bad.
But okay, the Jaguars showed resilience. They come back, and after Trevor Lawrence throws four interceptions in the first half, somehow they shut the Chargers down to only put up 3 points in the second half, and they win 31-30. Fast forward, they're playing Kansas City. Kansas City obviously is a big favorite. I think they were like 9-point favorites, and Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. He gets a high ankle sprain. It seemed like a clean play. They tackled him, and the defensive player just kind of drops his body weight and awkwardly bends Patrick Mahomes' ankle. At that point, that was the blood in the water. It seemed like after Patrick Mahomes was out for a while, you let Chad Henne come. He had dust on him. They blew dust off of Chad Henne. He comes out and drives the ball down and scores a touchdown. And that is the reason why you shouldn't have been in the playoffs.
Right.
It just was. I can't say enough. It seemed like they were not willing to. Number one, they should have applied immense pressure on Henne. That they should have been like, the nerve of you to think you could come in and carry this offense over. We were already primed. We were playing. We should have been all over him. And then second half, when Patrick Mahomes comes back, they taped up his ankle. I'm sure they gave him some shots in it. You know he's compromised. There is no way that, as good as he is, and we know Patrick Mahomes can throw with both his feet in the air. He can throw with just his fingertips. He can throw spinning on his head. But you're injured, and you know he's injured. It's not one of those things where it was an injury during the week and where it's undisclosed. We don't know the severity of it. You've seen his ankle. They played it, I don't know how many times, I'm sure, at the game. We saw it on TV. So you know there is injury. We're not trying to obviously end his career, but we just want to put him out the game and force Chad Henne to beat us. Yeah. And if you... just from a pride standpoint, I think that they did a terrible job. I think they were not as aggressive as far as blitzing as they were earlier. I think after, in some way, shape, or form, they felt sorry for him, and they weren't playing up to par. And as a result, they went home. And so it's, they covered the spread. They lost by 7. They kicked a late field goal. They were up by 10. Kansas City, they kicked the field goal, and people who went with the Jaguars are happy. The people that picked the overwhelming favorite in Kansas City are upset from a betting standpoint. But from a standpoint of an opportunity to advance, they squandered that. They fumbled the ball, no pun intended, and they should have capitalized on Patrick Mahomes being injured. Not only that, I will say this. We know high ankle sprains historically, the time frame on that. So he was feeling good, but he obviously between shots and adrenaline was able to get through that game.
Right.
This week, I don't know, and so that's why even before the injury happened, I knew that neutral location and that was never going to happen.
Right.
But now imagine if they had to go to Atlanta.
Right.
You're missing a day. You got to do treatment and you got to try to work on that swelling. It makes no sense. What do you say about the Jaguars?
No, I agree with you. I think you hit it all on the head. I think you gotta. This whole game obviously flipped, at least in a way of concern, in how you would play the game after the injury, right? And you're right. I think Jacksonville probably could have taken a little bit more advantage. I mean, I don't know if it speaks to Mahomes' greatness playing while injured and still able to overcome, or is the Jaguars that bad that they were not able to do something to at least, which I still thought was a competitive game. I mean, it did go down to that drive there. I think, Trevor Lawrence made some kind of what would be considered second-year mistakes, if you will, with the ball. But I think, Jacksonville probably could have done a little bit more to take advantage. But, I think they ran the ball, quite well to a degree, if I recall correctly. Let me just look here with the rushing. Yeah. What's his name? Pacheco? He ran the ball.
Yeah, Pacheco. Mm-hmm.
Pacheco. There you go. I'm sorry about that. Pacheco had 12 carries for 95 yards. He ran, I thought, effectively in that game. And some big runs that Jacksonville was not able to, obviously get containment with him. So, when you look at this game, I agree. The Jaguars, it would have been probably a little more interesting to see the Chargers. That's the game I would have hoped for. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. But Jacksonville, listen, Duval County, you got a lot to be proud of. You get the second round considering the debacle last year. Now you got a lot to look forward to. You could get, ETN, I thought played well. He had 10 carries for 62 yards, But again, it's David and Goliath. I think you hit it on the head as far as that comparison. So, look, Kansas City advances, high ankle sprain. I think Mahomes will be compromised next year because if it's the high ankle sprain that most people had with that injury, and I know Dak missed about, he missed, he didn't play well. He only missed a week with that. But when he came back, he was not the same. And he definitely was not trying to run at all. So this might compromise Mahomes' mobility a little bit come next week. Even though I got, Cincinnati to win that game. But it was a good win for Kansas City. I'll say this though, between them and Buffalo, who obviously we know we're going to talk about them in a minute, they're still not an overwhelming threat, right? I don't think they still dominate like that. So that's why, now with Mahomes being compromised, it's going to be real interesting to see, how fair they're going to play against Cincinnati. Because don't be surprised, if there's a blowout in that game. That would be very interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree because, Cincinnati he has owned Kansas City when Patrick Mahomes was completely healthy.
Exactly.
So, although Patrick Mahomes and Chad Henne, they leaned heavily on, obviously the run game was good. And of course, Travis Kelce. He had 14 receptions and 2 touchdowns. So why teams don't scheme or try to take him away? Because there is no Tyreek Hill anymore. So why not try to take him away? And I know easier said than done, right? Because he's, a Hall of Fame, should be a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end.
Oh, absolutely.
But with that being said, why not try to take him away?
Because I think because with that is, I think it's more or less like you're going to have to get somebody else to beat us, right? And not him. But with Mahomes being who he is, it's like the 49ers, right? We took Debo out the game. We took CMC out the game. We took Ayuk out the game. We took Juszczyk out the game. We did everything we could, right? But who could we not stop? Kittles. So if we shut down Kittles, right, then one of those other little guys would have popped up. Debo would have had somebody was going to have a good game. Is what I'm trying to get to. Because you just got so many doggone weapons.
Yeah, but
that's the thing with Kansas City, I think.
But they don't have that. See, I disagree. I don't think that they have. No, I don't think they. There is no way someone has the bulk of your receptions, right? Because Schuster didn't do too much, right? He wasn't overly impressive. The run game, Pacheco balled out.
Yeah.
McKinnon, he's a good running back. I mean, leading into the playoffs, he's been phenomenal. But overall, yeah, Patrick Mahomes has the ability to spread the ball around, but he will not be able to spread the ball around the same way because he's compromised now.
Well, yeah, now,
number one,
right.
but number two, it's like, to compare them to the Niners is not fair. I think the bulk and the majority of the targets go to Kelsey.
Right.
You could arguably have they don't have the flexibility of players the way we do. So although
From a
yes,
skill perspective,
no, they don't. So
No, I
so
agree.
Patrick Mahomes is able to do more with less. Because if we're honest, if teams made it their business, we're not going to let Kelsey beat us. I think that brings Kansas City down to earth and makes them more in the ballpark. But if you are allowing Kelsey to be Kelsey and you're letting Patrick Mahomes, have options, because who has proven that they can, if Kelsey is taken away, who is the go-to from there?
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, think about it. Kelsey was always great, even when Tyreek was there, right? But Tyreek, we knew, was a great receiver. Took the top off the defensive speed. You had to account for him, right? Now you lose him. You got Kelsey and the crew. But because of Mahomes, and my point is, it's because Mahomes is the kind of quarterback that he is. He doesn't necessarily need to have that other go-to guy, because he's just so good that his ability to distribute the ball, throw guys open, as long as these guys are running their routes, Mahomes can find these guys, and they still know how to play with him. They understand his tendencies, his proclivities as a quarterback, how he moves when the offense breaks down. These guys just know how to work with him. And so I think I agree with you. If you could stop Kelsey from 14 catches, yes, my God, you definitely stand a better chance if you just concentrate and focus on him. But I still think, though, because of Mahomes and the way he is, they can still beat you. It might be a little harder, a little more contested, but they will still find a way because of Mahomes. You guys, on the other hand, you got a plethora of weapons. It's the weapons that support the quarterback. But in Kansas City, it's the quarterback that support the weapons. And I just think
great point.
With Mahomes just being who he is, I think that's why he just elevates everybody else. Whereas in San Fran, everybody else elevates the quarterback.
That's a great point. It's going to be interesting next week to see if Mahomes, a gimpy Mahomes is better than a full Joe Burrow, which
a gimpy Mahomes better than a full Dak, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, that might be.
All right, you don't have to respond. That was just.
I'm just in agreement with you, But moving on to the next game, oh man, this brings you much joy. The New York Football Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles. And although Rod did not, for most of the year, fought me tooth and toenail about talking about the Giants, we had to, because they were a playoff team. And I say were because they, very much as a Tribe Called Quest left their wallet in El Segundo, they left their offense. The New York Giants left I don't know where their offense was. Unfortunately, listen, as good as they looked against the Vikings, I mean, Saquon Barkley, Danny Dimes, they were locked and loaded. That offense almost looked unstoppable under, Brian Daboll.
Right.
Fast forward, we were questioning Jalen Hurts coming into it because he had been injured. They had a bye, rest or rust, as everyone always says, which is better. And clearly, there was no rust. I will say this: Jalen Hurts didn't have a phenomenal game, but all the pieces, they ran the ball like it was unbelievable. I think they had 268 yards. So it's like, if you have a run game, and they still obviously have really good weapons. They have Brown. They
Yeah.
have Devontae Smith.
Devontae.
So they have
Goddard.
Dallas Goddard.
Yep.
Dallas, there you go, Dallas Goddard. That was the only Dallas that was successful yesterday.
You know what?
Dallas Goddard.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. Go ahead.
I knew,
Yeah.
they
You had
slip
to get
out
one
every
in.
once in a while.
Show.
I've been nice.
You've been nice.
But it slips out once in a while.
I feel,
But in any case, I think I will say this. I am not overly concerned about playing the Eagles. And the reason why I say this is because the Eagles have had problems stopping the run all year.
Yeah,
and they kept trying to beef it up with Sue and bringing other people in to try to stop the run. And I will say this, our run game, we're not going to fold when our run game after a quarter or even a half is not getting the traction that it normally gets. So I think we'll stay committed to the run. I think we'll be able to run way better on them than we did even on the Cowboys. But back to the Giants versus Philly. I think Philly, once they jumped on top, and that was the thing. Once they got a lead, they grinded them into powder. And that's what you have to do with teams that you are superior to.
Right.
When you're superior to a team, you can't allow them to have one drop of hope.
None.
You have to finish them, and you have to make it unequivocally certain that you are outclassed. You shouldn't even be playing with us. And clearly that's what they did. I mean, shout outs to the Giants. Shout outs to all the Giant fans. I will say this. Your future is promising because I'm looking at it from a coaching standpoint. You've had a huge coaching upgrade. Saquon is healthy. I think that their biggest thing in the offseason should be receivers. Their receiving core was completely decimated. And of course, if you have nobody to throw it to and you become a one-dimensional team, i.e. one good receiver or one good running back, and you expect the quarterback to do everything, ask the Bills about that. They have no run game, and everything is based off of Josh Allen trying to be – if Josh Allen is trying to force passes and he's trying to be your number one running back, RB1 / quarterback.
Right.
So I think and so that was the problem with the Giants. I think that they're going to be a force reckoned with in the NFC East moving forward, but they have to get some receivers. And who's to say if Odell Beckham comes back, if they draft some receivers, they might be right in the mix, trying to get the NFC East division next year. What do you say?
No, I say the same thing. I don't think. Look, the Giants. Look, they laid a bad egg. I mean, I don't think anybody thought they would play that bad, right? You expected some competitiveness considering what they did in Minnesota, but the Eagles exerted themselves. Like you said, you gotta demolish a team that you're way more superior than. So, and the Eagles did just that. Not really sure what happened to the Giants, to be pretty much rich. I think they might have just gotten a little overwhelmed on the road. The Philly fans there, the first drive, Philly goes down and score with ease. And I just think they came ready to play. They just punched the Giants in the mouth, and that was just it. Daniels looked really rattled in that game. Didn't look real comfortable like he did a week ago. And so that's just, that was the story of the Giants. But hey, great year for them. I think Dave Ball, old fathead, he gets the coach of the year in my opinion. But I just want to just punch right. His head is so fat. But anyway, but you are right, my friend. You do not need to worry about the Eagles. And I'm not saying it because I am an Eagle hater, right? But again, I think y'all can beat the Eagles. No question about it. Look, great offense. They got the running game, the RPO. It worked for them. You got Gainwell, who played really well on Saturday. And then Sanders also ran for almost 100 yards as well. So, look, they played well. They rushed the ball really well. You definitely got to be concerned with that. They got good guys on the outside. But their defense ain't Dallas, okay? Now, they could have been a good defense for a long – I think if I'm not mistaken, you might fact-check me on that, or we'll have our producers fact-check that on us, because I think they led the league in sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So they can get pressure on the quarterback. They got a good front four. But again, that gets neutralized by what? The run game, right? And I know we'll preview this game come Friday, but again, that I still think their defense has definitely some issues. Bradbury, Slay, Pro Bowlers. Slay is an all-pro. I get it, but trust me, don't believe the hype. It ain't all that, okay? CD rocked out on them boys, and we put up a 40 burger on them. Dak still had his way, okay? So I think you guys really should. I don't think you'll struggle or will be so hard to move the ball like it was against Dallas on Sunday. I think you guys will find a little bit relaxation there to some degree. Good defense, but I don't think they have enough to stop with you guys. If we were able to put up that on them, I'm sure you guys can. That's why I say I don't think they're going to be too much of an issue. But good victory for the Eagles. You know, they did their thing. They won. They were supposed to win, so they should. So they host the championship game.
And I'll go back to one thing that I think Dallas has to take a long look at.
What's that?
With the change in the rules that only one team gets to bye, every game counts. And clearly we can just think about this.
What do you mean by that?
Every game counts because now if Dallas would have handled business and perhaps put themselves in position to win that division, they could have been hosting, you know, they could have potentially got the bye. I mean, obviously there were other teams in play. We were in play. Minnesota was in play, but just think about if Dallas would have handled business in winnable games, they didn't drop when they had significant leads. They could be, you know, chilling for the first week and then playing a subpar team, and they could have wiped the floor with, you know, perhaps the Giants.
What would have happened is, had we beaten Jacksonville, that was the loss that derailed us. If we beaten Jacksonville, then because the Eagles lost. So had we beaten Jacksonville, we would have got the number 2 seed over Minnesota. You know what I mean? So we would have hosted a game, and we would have ended up getting the Giants.
Well, I think it was obviously mistaken. Jacksonville, but also that Packers loss would have, you know.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately,
because your division, you need within the NFC, the Packers also had, you know, that loss. Between that and Jacksonville, those two.
We with the Vikings, we had to head on the Vikings, but we didn't have the better record because of that L to Jacksonville. That Jacksonville loss was huge in a lot of ways. And remember, we only got in by default because I can't remember who it was. I think it was Washington or whoever it was that won. Somebody won later that night, and that's what ended up getting us. That's how we.
It was the Giants. Remember, you didn't want to talk about the Giants. The New York. Once again, we talk about the Giants. The New York Football Giants assisted you.
He's going to talk about the Giants, y'all, next week, though. He's going to find a way to sneak them in.
No, we're not. The Giants, that's it. Giants are dead to me this year. Dead to me.
They dead to
Ain't nothing to talk about anymore. Unless, obviously, you know, in the offseason, they sign Odell and they make some big splash, you know, signings. Free agency.
He could go back to New York,
You know?
I won't be surprised.
But, okay, let's talk about the last game that we're going to kind of recap.
Okay.
Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills. Okay, so Buffalo, as I said last show, is one of the last teams, because you asked me team for team who was I worried about or who would kind of put up the largest challenge or the biggest challenge to us in order to, you know, would be in our way if coming from the AFC or any team, period. And I said the Bengals. The quarterback, he's the truth. You know, the weapons they have a very good running game. They got actually two good running backs. They have great receivers in Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I don't even think he did much but they have so many receivers. Of course, they have a good tight end. So the offensive line, although they were down 3 offensive linemen, they outperformed and played well. Kept, for the most part, Joe Burrow extremely clean. He wasn't getting up off the grass every play.
Nope.
And of course, the defense has been playing really well. So I think out of the teams left, and definitely out of the teams in the AFC, the Bengals would create the biggest challenge for us. And it's kind of looking like that is going to be the Super Bowl, Cincinnati and the 49ers. If I have to make an early prediction, because I do think that we will be successful against the Eagles. Shout out to all, you know, Scrap and Eric.
Yeah.
I know you guys are diehard Eagle fans, but shout out to you guys. But I think,
My
in
condolences,
the words of
guys.
Dion, we're coming. We're coming. And
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to handle you guys. Now, from the
Yeah.
AFC side, I mean, Joe Burrow, I think that they have the temperament. He has the temperament. The team
Definitely.
is hungry. The team
Yep.
felt slighted by them doing that whole neutral site and them
Yep.
not having the opportunity based on the game cancellation and
Yep.
the NFL thinking outside the box and creating something, a rule on the fly that kind of excluded them from having the opportunity to have home field advantage throughout. I thought that it was disrespectful that they started selling tickets, but I mean, the NFL is in the business to make money. Let's
Sure
face
you
it.
are. Sure
So
you are.
they already
No
started
question.
selling tickets, and people were anxious to see. Obviously, Atlanta, the Falcon season has been over for about 4 months. So I mean, it hasn't been that long, but about 4 months their season has been over.
Since week
So
one. But yeah.
they were really excited to have a big pivotal playoff game,
Right.
at the Mercedes Benz.
Right.
But it didn't happen because, as you predicted Cincinnati was going to beat Buffalo. Now I'm gonna say this: there was
Mm-hmm.
some friction and a little bit of frustration by Stephon Diggs. And if we remember, Stephon Diggs was a really good young receiver that was started out in Minnesota, and he was
Right.
balling out, and they just couldn't get over the hump. So
Right.
here, it was the quarterback play. It clearly
Right.
wasn't his fault, but he's in a dependent position, right? Because he can't throw
Yep.
the ball to himself.
Sure.
Fast forward, he goes to Buffalo, and he changes lives in Buffalo. He was an
Mm-hmm.
impact player,
No
very
doubt.
much the way Amari Cooper was a game changer for
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, he was.
Dallas
Yep.
and Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Instantly, they had symmetry, they had
Yep.
connection. Josh Allen and Diggs. It elevated his game. He had a bona fide go-to receiver.
Yep.
So it made sense. They started balling out, but Josh Allen is Josh Allen. At the end of the day, what we love about Josh Allen is what ultimately is his undoing.
Yep.
The fact that he can throw it 70 yards. The
Right.
fact that he can run and take hits. He's a big
Right.
quarterback that doesn't mind the contact, that doesn't shy away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all beautiful things. But the untimely, sometimes being too cocky with your arm power and your arm strength, trying to force it into double and triple coverage is what gets him in trouble.
Yep.
And I think that obviously they missed tremendously Von Miller, right? Because we already said the whole season they had no run game.
Nope.
So their run game was already compromised. When Josh Allen is your best runner, you're in trouble. I don't care how good he is. Number two, now the defense became compromised because now you don't have a pass rush. So the opponents are able to have longer drives because there is not that pass rush or that one player that you have to concern yourself with or scheme your offensive line to protect against.
Right.
And Von Miller, I mean, he's rehabbing. I mean, he got a huge payday. They're going to be all right. But ultimately, Josh Allen, untimely turnovers, the fact that, I thought he almost was going to make it through a game without a turnover. And of course, in the end, he throws a turnover. I think there was some frustration levels that kind of boiled over on the sideline. I think they'll ultimately be okay. Gabe Davis underperformed. After looking so good last year, I think he had 4 touchdowns in that game that they ultimately lost.
Right.
He underperformed terribly this year. And as a result, they went home. And they had a home. They hosted in the snow. You would think this was perfect conditions for Buffalo to ball out. This is what they're used to. People are breaking their backs on tables in the parking lot, and you only put up 10 points.
Yep.
Somebody is on their way to the emergency room and you only put up 10 points. Somebody's getting a backiotomy and you only put up 10 points. Unacceptable. What do you say?
I say they need to pay for everyone's chiropractic bills. That's what they need. The Bills need to front the bill. That's what they need to do. And the point I was going to bring out, and you said it already, it's the run game. That's the problem with this team. This team cannot ever get over the hump until the run game gets right. Singletary is just not that dude. Yeah, they 100-something yards this year, but they need at least 1,200-yard runner in their backfield because you cannot, like you said, have your quarterback as your only real run threat. That's just it. And again, Josh Allen is going to be kind of somewhat like a Lamar to a degree, and I don't think we've seen all of the pessimistic effects that could happen with Lamar because of his style of play. But anytime the quarterback becomes the centrality of the entire offense, we were just talking about the weapons that the 49ers have and the Chiefs have. There's no weapons in Baltimore, right? Buffalo has weapons on the outside, but there's no running game to at least balance out the attack. And you need that. That's just what they're going to need. So I think they need to put some emphasis on upgrading that run game. I think that's really what they need to do. And, to your point, Von Miller, huge loss for them. Clearly what he brought to that defense, one guy just takes it up to the next, like Roquan Smith just took Baltimore to another level, right? That's the whole thing, what you get when you have a great players. That's what they do. But Josh, when you just only rely on that arm talent and his legs, it makes it easier for defenses to defend against you. And Cincinnati is not an overwhelmingly great defensive team. But again, they swarm, they play as a unit, and they make plays when they got to make plays, and they're opportunistic at the same time too. And they showed that, in that game against Buffalo. So when you are one-dimensional like that, and let's not forget, Cincinnati's a cold weather city as well, right? They get some snow in Ohio. So, they're not all that foreign to it. But like you said, those conditions would have favored most likely Buffalo. But they was able to, and I'm going to tell you when I thought that game was over, in the first drive. When I saw the first catch, boom, caught, hitting over the middle, and then you got Mixon running, and he mixing it up. And, he ran with ease. It was like he was playing with his kids in the backyard. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was like so just effortless. I said, this game is over. This game is over because the way they moving like that in the snow, come on, you shouldn't even be doing like that. So, yeah, I just don't think that this is a team, being Buffalo, that they got to really work on some other things. They got to get Josh some help. They really do. Because at the end of the day, I still think Knox is a good tight end. Beasley, he's not going to he's not a difference maker anymore. He's not that guy. You still ain't got Diggs. And like you said, Gabe had a bad year. So you're going to, that's a team too, like Dallas. Stephon might just be the only CeeDee Lamb on that team when it's all said and done. The rest of those guys are not as consistent. So he's going to need probably another threat on the outside, and they definitely got to get a running game. But Joe Cool and them boys, Cincinnati, I do see another rematch of the Bengals and 49ers in a Super Bowl where you guys bested them back in the 80s. And it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good Super Bowl, and Joe is cool. We're already passing the championship games already, as you can see. But
right,
yeah, I kind of like that. But I gotta be honest with you, D. If you get to the Super Bowl, I gotta root for Cincinnati because then you guys will end up with more Super Bowls than us. And, I gotta draw the line somewhere here.
I totally. That's obviously, yeah. I get it. I totally understand. We still have to. There is a line in the sand that must be drawn. I get it.
But let me say this: you can ask your question real quick about you.
Yeah, sure.
I know we because y'all won, so it's just, even though we talk about other teams, but the Niners are still kind of in the forefront here, as it should be. You guys won. Still hurts me. But what happens though if the Niners get back to a Super Bowl and don't win? Right. So you've been to 3 Super Bowls over the last 12 years, roughly, right? Because when you guys went with Kaepernick, that was what, 2011? I think it was
12,
right? So you got 12, and then you got 2 years ago, or no, not 2 years ago. What year was that with Garoppolo in Kansas City? That was about 3 years ago.
That was 18, I think.
18, right?
18 or 19?
Right, 18 or 19, right?
18 or 19, I think.
18 or 19, right? Mm-hmm. And then potentially this year, right? Kyle's got 4 Super Bowls under his belt now that he's lost, right? That would be 4. Oh, because I'm counting the one as an OC with the Falcons. What happens now with the 49ers? What say you about these trips? Do you become the bank? Do you become the Denver Broncos of the 80s that went to 4 Super Bowls and lost? Do you not necessarily the Bills that went 4 consecutive Super Bowls and lost, but what do you think? Does that put a little hit on the 49ers legacy a little bit with losing 3 Super Bowls within
well,
say,
let's not say
span?
we lost 3 Super Bowls, but because we have to get there, and I like our chances once we
Oh, I
get there.
definitely like your chances.
But I will say this: it is better to have loved and have lost than not to have loved at all. And what that means is the teams that people can always come up with ways to, man, you've been successful, but you haven't been that successful. Listen, would Jerry Jones take going to an NFC? I tried to be good the whole show, and now this is what you want to do.
No. I'm just saying. No,
you want a player with 2 strikes to go to jail for life. You listen. I tried to be good the whole show.
Listen,
I was gracious, but now you asked me this question, and my blood is boiling. It's at my waist now.
It's at your waist,
and it's coming up. And I will say this. Obviously. Right. When a team gets there, because it's so far and few between, and it's not easy. Ask the Cowboys. Is it easy to even make an NFC championship game? Facts. You don't want to, you want to take full advantage of it. And very much when we were dealing with Kaepernick, and we had opportunities, because, look how great our defense was. When we were battling and going head-to-head with Seattle, when they had the Legion of Boom, and we had our players, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. We had Hittner. We had, Dante Hittner, right? We had a great team. And it seemed like we underachieved, right? We had an opportunity in 2012. Obviously, we were playing in New Orleans. The lights went out, the whole situation. Ray Lewis, I still feel they wanted Ray Lewis to go out on top. But that being said, I think obviously no Niner fan feels okay with just having NFC championship wins and not a Super Bowl. So I think being there is good, but that's not the end all be all. Obviously, it's about championships.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I think would Kyle being able to go to 3 NFC championships in 4 years, not cashing in on a Super Bowl, would that put him on any type of hot seat? Or the 49ers brass decided that they need to make a coaching change? Absolutely not. But from a standpoint of accomplishments, you want the confetti. You want to pop bottles and drink champagne and enjoy all of the, the accomplishment of being the best in the league. Absolutely. So to answer your question, I think number one, we have to get there. I think our team is better. And this is not a Jerry Jones statement. This team is more talented than any team. I think this team is very talented from top to bottom. Do I think CMC's addition puts us over the top? I think it does. Does it seem like Brock Purdy has the confidence, although he's a 7th round pick, last pick in the draft? Does he have the confidence to bring us over the top? I think he does. Absolutely. Do I think the trust that Kyle Shanahan has in Brock Purdy, has he been handcuffing him and kind of keeping him, hey, just manage? No, very much so from the rip. Brock Purdy has been, we don't even talk to him even in such a small sample size the way we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, because it's, hey, Jimmy's managing, the team is winning in spite of. We're winning with Brock Purdy, which is a different mindset going into it.
No question.
And I think from a standpoint, the urgency has to be high, because how many times every team should be actively looking to get better every year. So how long are we expected with all of the teams and trying to create some type of competitive balance with all these teams and free agency and drafting? Do we expect to be at the top and always making it there? We have to seize the moment.
Well, and no, you do. And that's why I asked the question. Like, in other words, the premise behind my question is more or less, with a team like the 49ers, right? You almost would think that outside of Purdy, who's a 7th round draft pick and who's a rookie, the team, how much better could the 49ers actually get, right? To a degree, right? Dallas got to make improvements. Philly's got to make improvements. We saw the teams and the rest of the teams that's been in the playoffs. Everybody has got to make improvements. We talked about it all through the show tonight, right? Teams that both won and lost, there's things that they got to do. If you look at the Niners, outside of the quarterback always being that question mark, right? when do you what do you say if the 49ers were to lose the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship? Then what is said? Like what is the thing that you gotta fix? Is it more around the quarterback now again? Do we have the right quarterback? Do we still need to improve upon Purdy? Do we need to get something else to take us over the top? Because we got a great play caller, we got a great coach, we got a great defense. We've got everything that would appear to be almost perfect. Because when you go back to 12, right? Kaepernick, uncharacteristically, got y'all to a Super Bowl, right? You moved on from Alex Smith, he gets you there. Then you get Garoppolo. Again, the quarterback play, missed the throw. Didn't make the passes in that Super Bowl against the Jeez, I can't remember who we even lost to now. Jesus, can't remember.
Baltimore. We lost to Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
Kansas City, right?
And we lost to Baltimore.
Right? You lost to Baltimore in 12, right? So then then this year, right? So if this year comes down to, let's just say Purdy again or something to that effect, right? What I'm asking is that going forward as a fan who watches the team intently and really studies your team, what do you think could be something that, okay, if we were not to win this Super Bowl or we lose in the NFC Championship, depending on how the game goes, right? You'll know more based on how the game ends and you can make a fair assessment. But what do you think the 49ers, a team that's been to 3 Super Bowls in the last 12 years or so, what do you think would be something that you guys would have to actually change? You see what I'm saying? That's the question.
Well, I think it all depends on, like you kind of alluded to, it depends on how we lose, right?
Right.
It depends what part of the game is deficient and needs, if it's something that is just a bad play, or if it's something inherently bad, or something that obviously needs attention and needs to be fixed. I think it all depends. It's on a situational basis. Right. I mean, the way our team is constructed, I like it, top to bottom. So I can't create any, I can't pinpoint something that I think is the reason why we will or won't win. I will say this. I do think 3 times, if we make it to the Super Bowl, 3 times will be the charm. I think I like our chances in the field against any of the teams that we would have to face. I think we pose a significant problem. Right. And if we go into the Super Bowl healthy, whole, I think that I like our chances, because that's the only thing, like I mentioned to you before. I don't think that there is a team left that poses a problem big enough that the Niners can't solve.
I agree, because y'all got through the biggest
there ain't no problem that the Niners can't solve.
Yeah, ain't no problem the Niners can't solve. Well, like I said, you guys beat the best opponent that matched up the best against y'all. So if you can get through the Dallas defense and you was able to shut down our offense, okay, albeit Pollard got hurt to your point, but still, nevertheless, it was a slugfest. And I don't think the teams that remain, Eagles and or Cincinnati or Kansas City, Kansas City could be a little different because Mahomes is a whole different animal.
I don't think. But listen,
but I still think y'all defense can definitely shut him down.
There is no quarterback with a high ankle sprain that's nursing a high ankle sprain that's going to beat us. I will say that. I don't care how talented he is. Yeah. There is not a quarterback that is not 100% and has mobility, because he's reduced not to like a Tom Brady. But he has to be more of a pocket quarterback based on his injury. He's not going to be scrambling and trying to extend plays, because any hit potentially is a setback, and then he's done for the season pretty much. And do we really think that Chad Henne is going to? And I'm interested to see because Mahomes is not going to practice much at all, if any, this week. I'm interested to see if Chad Henne is going to get some first team snaps. That will be an indicator that they aren't 100% sure that, i.e. Mahomes will not be able, if he's hit again, to finish the game, or they may want to make just have Henne abreast of kind of what they're looking to do against said opponent. And I'm interested in seeing, obviously he's going to be on the injury report, but I want to see how the practices are going. I don't expect to see Mahomes actually out there doing anything, because he doesn't need practice. He needs treatment. He needs to get that swelling down, and that has to be their focus. But I don't think
It's going to be good though to see. I think with to see how Andy Reid and
Eric Bieniemy.
Eric Bieniemy. I'm telling you, man, I'm getting old. D. Thank you for. I'm glad you're a
Aren't
young
we
guy.
all? We all
Yeah,
are.
you know what
No?
I'm saying. Yeah, no, you're younger than me, man. Your
As my
mind is so
mom
fresh.
says, it
Right?
beats the alternative, right?
It beats the alternative. Facts.
Getting
That's right.
old, right,
Yes,
is
sir.
better than being dead.
Them being dead. There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So no, but I think it'd be interesting to see Bieniemy and how Andy Reid comes up with their game plan, considering the composition of Mahomes and how he's compromised, right? To go up against D'Amico Ryan in that defense, it's going to be interesting to see. Just again, the matchup, the schematics, the chess matches, how they're going to do, because it's going to, y'all are not going to give them a whole lot. And one thing that I did feel Dallas didn't do, we didn't take enough shots down the field. I felt we should have taken a little more shots down the field. We didn't do that. We settled for what y'all gave us instead of dictating to you guys what we should have done. But I don't know how.
But as we discussed before,
could do something.
You can have weapons if you don't have time for those players to develop. It compromise. You do it. It's that is a defense imposing their will and forcing you to take what we give you. And if it's just the short intermediate passes, we're okay with that because we will swarm that. We're not going to let you get a big shot because we're going to put so much pressure that those plays and that play won't be able to develop. So, and I want to say one thing that is not discussed, and this is kind of on topic but off topic. The NFL is going to have to do better with their kind of coaching carousel. I don't want D'Amico, and shout out to D'Amico Ryans. He canceled 2 interviews. I'm focused on beating the Cowboys. I can't be, I know your
I hate that. I hate the
your coach actually had, I think, 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Obviously, some of them are Zoom, right? But I think some might be in
Denver
person.
Flew into Dallas.
But if they're focusing on, listen, there is a 2-week window, right? My suggestion would be, okay, if your team is still in it, there is 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, right? After the championship game, the AFC and NFC championship game, there's 2 weeks before the Super Bowl.
Right.
You can use that first week, a couple of days in that first week to knock out interviews. Because at this point, what really are you doing that is really impacting the next season? And I don't know from a standpoint of, hey, we got to hit the ground running, or do you just want to lock somebody in? I get it, but it's distracting. I think maybe they should have a hands-on approach to teams who are still actively in the playoffs.
Right.
That, hey, we can now start to. Now, let me tell you, today's a perfect day to interview them. You guys are out of it. I shouldn't have. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessary. But you guys are out of it. Now, talk to him all you want. But I think
actually,
when you're preparing,
the window is closed. I think if I'm not mistaken, you might have to fact check me on this, but I think the window is closed. You're not allowed to interview between the divisional game throughout the rest of the
really
year. Yeah.
So they definitely need
the championship game. Yeah, they don't want anybody getting in. They don't want to have to.
They got to change that because every game is win or go home. So every game, in the grand scheme of things, has the same significance, right?
Well, you know what? I tell you, go ahead. We got to finish.
So why cut it off at this point? If teams aren't actively in it, now I get it. Don't talk to the Bengals, Kansas City. Don't talk to the Niners. Don't talk to Philly. But every other team should be, hey, we want to reach out to these teams and interview them. But to actively going into divisional round, still trying to pull and prod and get an interview in, I think it's distracting. It's disrespectful to the teams that they're actually coaching. Yeah. It's disrespectful to the players. And I know organizations have to get permission for them to interview. But from a standpoint, you want your team, you want top to bottom, defense, offense, special teams, all of the coaches involved to be focused on the game, on the what we have to handle,
It just so happens DQ took 3 interviews, but clearly didn't affect his preparation because the Dallas defense played well. They didn't lose that game yesterday, but Kellen Moore, who didn't get any interviews, you would thought he was the guy that was flying across the country, getting calls left and right. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know there are teams that are interested in him as the head coach, and I hope he does get hired because then it'll make it easier. We don't have to fire
Right.
him. He can go on. It'll be all good. But yeah, but I agree with you, D. And I think they talked about that too on one of the shows. I think I don't know. I think Tony Dungy and them was talking about it, and it's really bad. They NFL has to change that. I totally agree. But yeah, but we'll see.
There's so many other things other than the NFL playoffs we got to talk about. We got to talk about the whole Tony Dungy situation. We got to talk about Bethune-Cookman not ratifying the contract of what's his name? I forget his name that quick.
Ed Reed?
Ed Reed, right.
Yeah. Okay.
That whole situation. There's a lot of topics that we're going to get to, but obviously we're focusing on, the pressing issues at hand. That's why we're focusing. We haven't even been talking NBA, although I just want to make a quick shout out to the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets, I have several people here locally that, are Warriors fans. And everybody was so excited and said, Warriors came to Brooklyn. We beat them by 1,000 points. We were on our way to a 200. We were about to put 200 on them. Yeah. And they pulled everybody. It was like, hey, listen, anybody that they took fans to see, hey, y'all want to play, y'all want to fill in for KD and the rest of them just to finish the game. And we still lost. We still won by, I think, over 30 points.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, oh, that was luck.
Yeah,
Steph was hurt.
Yeah.
Wiggins.
Yeah.
Somebody was picking his hair. Out. He couldn't play. And so all of that took place. Fast forward to Sunday. Brooklyn, without KD, who is hurt and is going to be out for at least another 2 weeks. He'll be reevaluated.
Right.
They played the Warriors at the Chase Center. The Warriors were up as much as 17 points. Kyrie Irving has taken on a huge offensive load. Yeah. Last game, 48 points. This game, he outplayed Steph Curry. They had Steph Curry. They had Clay. Yeah. They had Wiggins. The only person that didn't play was Wiseman. Okay, and what do you Warriors fans really expect out of Wiseman?
Yeah.
Shut them down 120 to 116 in regulation. Yeah. Now, I don't want to hear anything else from Warrior fans. Okay, Brooklyn has proven what they needed to prove. We beat you with KD, beat you without KD, and you had a full complement of players. One more thing, and then we can move on. Everybody talks about what Ben Simmons can and cannot do offensively. I talked to one of my boys at work. Hey, listen, Ben Simmons. I said, whoever Ben Simmons, very much in Rocky IV. What he hits, he kills. Right? Ben Simmons. I said, whoever he holds, he's going to lock down. Yeah. I said, if he holds down Clay, he's going to shut down Clay. If he holds Wiggins, he's going to shut down Wiggins. Why did both of them combined only have 14 points?
Simmons is a great defender. I mean, I don't think
we don't need the points. I say all that to say he runs the offense. He's going to have sufficient rebounds. He's definitely going to have the assists, and he does what we need.
He's doing what he did in Philly. I mean, that's all.
He took more shots. He took more attempts. He took more shots. He was obviously more aggressive, and I'm hoping at some point in the season he flips a switch.
There, so he had to.
That is true. That is true. So hopefully at the point he flips the switch and he's not so dependent on the scorers that are around him. But if Ben Simmons does what he continues to do and we have KD come back, KD picks up where he's left off, I think we have a very good chance because we're still teetering at that 4 position. So it's not like our star player is gone and now we're, in the play-in. We are playing still really well. And so I like this, and I'll say this, and we can wrap it up. Shout out to Casey for watching.
Casey!
She reached out. Thank you. I'm
Casey?
glad you enjoyed the show. I told you I would take it easy on Rod. She begged me. She begged me not to. She said, "Please don't slay him. Please, Hammer, don't hurt him." So I said, "I'm not gonna hurt him. I'm not gonna hurt him. I'm gonna be gentle with him. I've known him too long to act like he's just a common." in the street,
fan, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
So
yeah,
I was exactly, but I'm not going to do that. I like that my teams were 2-0, right? Yeah. Because everyone knows I'm a diehard Niners fan, diehard Brooklyn Nets fan. I've liked them, growing up when they
Yeah.
were in Jersey. But now that they're in Brooklyn, I even love them more.
Well,
So
they
shout out
started
to.
in New York, actually. Did you know that? They actually played in Long Island, the Nets.
That is true.
20.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think, but that predates me, I think.
Yeah, it does. But, a little bit of history there. So they're still technically New York, right? They went to Jersey. Now they're in Brooklyn. So they essentially
right where they need to be.
Yeah.
Right where they need to be.
I like the Nets. I know the Nets are good. Look, you're not going to get anything to me. But shout out to the Lakers that came back, 25-point deficit.
That is good.
Portland. That was a great win for the Lakers. LeBron again, the best old guy ever to play. LeBron is, I think, well, we'll talk. We have to talk more about that.
We got to talk about LeBron. We also got to talk about Shannon Sharp, ready to fight 55 people at the game.
Yeah, they gave a 10-minute apology today, but yeah.
And now he apologized. I think his apology, I'll say this.
I want to apologize to Brooklyn Boys and Ball if I offended you. I'm sorry if I did anything to hurt you and I offended you.
He needed
your wife. King
right.
He was like,
he apologized to everybody. And I think in that case, it might be less is more. It may be more endearing that he did, pretty much put himself out there. Maybe it's more endearing. Maybe people look at it as, what? Good for him that he's, he says he's not too big to apologize. And I think to a degree, that might have been a backhanded comment and shot at Skip. Maybe I'm reading into it too much.
I thought so. No, I felt the same too.
But the fact that he says I'm never too, big, I'm not too popular or too important to admit when I was wrong. But I just think that they gave him all the wind. I mean, he was talking through commercial. The commercial was on and I still heard him talking and apologizing under.
He's still apologizing.
Right. So,
oh gosh. Yeah.
Good for him, man.
Yeah,
listen,
so too. Yeah, I thought that was a little shot at.
I thought that was.
You should have done your apology.
Exactly. That's why I thought it was, and so I think maybe he overdid it to further distance the how he responds to things, to criticism and mistakes he's made, as opposed to Skip Bayless. I think everything is strategic, right? So I think that was a smart move, savvy. We are a little like, all right, Shannon, little. Less is more with the apology, but I think he overdid it to emphasize that, hey, I just work with him. I'm not like him. So I think it was interesting how he handled that.
But he still gotta, Shannon gotta.
But let me tell you something. Somebody, and I think I texted this to you, and I thought it was a very interesting point. Somebody said that Shannon Sharp will fight. He'll go at brothers. He'll fight everybody in the game. Right. But Skip will tell him to put his glasses on, and he'll put his glasses on. So there is some validity to that. I think that is a point that, hey, that is accurate, because he was ready. Dylan Brooks, John Morant.
Yeah, ready to fight the whole team.
Usher, John Morant's father, Usher. He was ready to fight him. He was ready to fight everybody. What's the other dude? Adams. He looked like he was going. He would have went for anybody that was there.
But if I was Shannon, I would have made Skip, and I would have really made it. I would have went to the producers no more. I want a public apology for accusing me, as a Hall of Fame player, of being jealous of Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying? And just ultimately disrespecting me. As a like, in other words, because that to nullify his credentials and to think that his take was undermined because you feel he is jealous of Tom Brady, a position that he didn't even play. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one. It
undermines his position of even being on the show. If you think my takes are based on jealousy and envy, I shouldn't be on the show with you. Because and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because it's not like you ever seen Shannon disrespect Skip for his years in the game as a journalist, as a writer, someone that's covered teams and sports, right? There's a field for that gets some notoriety or credibility, right? You don't just simply, just dismiss a guy who
But
has a lot of years of experience in journalism. So, you give them their due. You know what I'm saying? Even if you disagree with them. But to do what you did to Shannon, if I'm Shannon Sharp, I'm not coming back on the show until I get an apology.
And to your point, what if Shannon highlighted other journalists that have body of work been more successful than
even
Skip?
A better point.
What if he was? What if he said, I don't know what journalist, but what if he was said XYZ, a journalist who
Stephen A. Yo,
right,
former partner was better.
Right, you're no Stephen A. What if he would have said you had to leave because you were jealous of Stephen A. That's why you had to go to Fox Sports 1 and you make less than them, or whatever the case may be. He could have did that, and it calls into question their relationship. And the fact is, who needs who? And that we have a whole show on, should Shannon Sharp leave? Does he need to stay with Skip? Does he really need Skip at this point? Who's using who for credibility? Because Skip hasn't done, from a journalistic standpoint, he has credentials, but from a sports position, he's done nothing, right?
You know what you got to listen to? Go ahead. Finish your thought, D. I'm sorry.
And so that was my point. Like I'm interested to see it, and obviously that ship has sailed. Shannon Sharp didn't demand that, but he didn't demand that was one of my main problems with LeBron James. And I will say this: LeBron James, Dan Gilbert openly disrespected him, openly said he was a quitter, openly called him everything but a child of God. And what did the only thing, we had a private meeting, we discussed it, and but you put out an open letter pretty much criticizing LeBron James as a person, even after all he has done for the Cleveland organization. Then what does LeBron do? Comes back and wins you a championship in Cleveland. This is for you. Who cares about that? Dan Gilbert explained and apologized to me publicly, because at the end of the day, LeBron James being part of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who benefited the most? Think about the value of Cleveland prior to LeBron being there. Once he won the championship, he has impacted that economy. He has impacted to a great degree Dan Gilbert's pockets. And I'm not saying Dan Gilbert was broke and was a pauper prior to LeBron being, but certainly he has elevated that franchise if Dan Gilbert at any point wants to sell it. So I mean, let's, I know Usher has he has a minority ownership in it, and maybe some other people, but overall Dan Gilbert is the primary person that owns Cleveland Cavaliers.
You may have to fact check me on this, but I think he apologized because I think the NBA fined him or made him apologize because they felt what he did was not at the standard of an owner. But to your point, it's, and like I said, I think that's what happened. You might have to factor in that. But I think to your point, though, he didn't do it because LeBron should have asked him to made him do that.
Right, out of respect.
I'm not coming back to Cleveland until I get an open apology. Then I'll sign.
Absolutely.
That's the caveat that he should have put forward.
Absolutely.
Gilbert apologizing, but only because the NBA made him do it.
And some things are worth more than money. The fact that you have leverage and you leverage yourself with a 2-year, 1 year, you can opt out after 1 year. Yeah, you're holding them hostage to a degree, and you can, squeeze the blood out of a turnip and get more money, and you have leverage that way. But it's about respect at some point, right? So you can, because what I bring to the table, you can respect me and pay me. It's not interchangeable. Either we gonna respect you or we gonna pay you. What's your choice? Right. And sometimes I think players and personalities compromise that, And unfortunately, time will tell what happens. But Shannon Sharp, shout out to him, because from just a standpoint of being a man, hey, if you're big and bad enough to do it, you have to be big and bad enough to, actually say that you were wrong. So shout out to him for that.
Shout out to Shannon. And we need to have him on a show. He can teach us how to apologize.
You know what I mean? But that'll be our whole show. I mean, our whole show will be apologies. But listen, man, it was fantastic. Man. Listen, always, it was painless, was it not?
Listen, D, I appreciate you. Listen, America, shout out to my boy Don. I gotta say, he was humble, he was gracious. in victory here, and I have to say, I was a little nervous, had some trepidation coming on the show today. I just figured my boy was going to just dog me out as he should, because the truth is, America, I was not going to be as nice had we won this game. And look at CD, he's so nice. He's just like, hey, but he was the bigger man, and he showed how you should really win, right? How there was a certain type of comportment and gathering that you carry yourself in when you have victory. That's why Cowboy fans, it's hard for us to win, because we could be nauseating. And when we win, it could be, you don't want to be in our space. Trust me, when we win. You understand what I'm saying? So again,
I'm just acting like we've been there before.
Humble. Yeah. Well, it's been a while since '95. I haven't been there in a while. So I was chomping at the bit. But it didn't happen. Congratulations to all you 49er fans out there. All right, y'all got it. Congratulations, D. Your team definitely deserved to be there. Y'all were the better team coming in. All right, look, we don't need. All right.
Let me match it up with your background.
You know what?
But listen, man, thanks for joining me. Shout out to Kingdom Creative for the production. Shout out to Infinite Audio for the music. I mean, the music is on point.
Appreciate you.
The production is on point.
Yes,
thank you. Hey, listen, everybody, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your, analysis, your kind of breaking down. We're getting a ton of feedback, based off of our show. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button so that you get every time we put up content, that you are the first to be notified. Also, share any of our videos, some of the ones that we made that were predicting how the outcome of this NFL season would be, some of the NBA stuff, some of the cultural stuff that we discussed. Just share it. We appreciate that. Share it. It starts the discussion. It mushrooms into something beautiful that we're trying to create for you guys. We appreciate everything that you guys do to us. Once again, do for us and to us. Once again, my co-host Rod, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Listen, you were gracious in defeat. You handled it well. You didn't hide. You didn't run. Shout out to your background. Thank you, Kittle, for that circus catch that kept the drive alive. Listen, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful weekend. And that's it, man. Until next time.
Until next time.
Peace.